What is up, Earthnoids and Spacenoids? I am just a simple new type, and in this episode, we are returning to Universal Century 0094 as we continue our coverage of Mobile Suit Gundam Pulitzer. Last time, we learned about Kikka Kobayashi, who is all grown up, and some of you people are way too thirsty for this now-grown war orphan. She talked to Jobjan and Omer Fang about how teamwork really made White Base the crew that everyone idolizes. In this episode, Kikka will talk to Amuro's mother, Camaria, and she also meets up with Stephanie Luo of Luo & Co. So let's get into this. In a hotel, Kikka has once again broke the sink and water is going everywhere. Yes, this is an opportunity for you perverts to enjoy Kikka in a towel, but it is also reminiscent of the time on White Base back in UC 0079 when Kikka and the kids broke the bathroom on White Base. She says that this seems to happen everywhere she goes. She gets a call from Kai and wonders how the investigation was going. She made her first steps, but she didn't expect to take her second steps by running into Omer Fang. She switches the call over to video mode as Kai asks if she plans on visiting the lady. Kai will get her a bus. Kikka asks why Kai is helping her. He says to consider this a funeral for Amuro. Kai whips out the good alcohol and pours himself a glass. Amuro's death doesn't make sense to him. A year ago, he went to Side 1 about a lead on a found Gundam type. He thought it could be Amuro's Gundam, but it was just a random machine. It was then he realized that he didn't need some kind of proof of Amuro's death, and so he decided to mourn him instead. That is when Kikka contacted him. He thinks that Kikka's perspective would make for a perfect send-off to Amuro. Is Kai into Kikka? She plans on getting a press pass for her next interview, but Kai suggests that she doesn't do that. It is very likely that her next interview will try to run away. It might be best for her to just barge in there. It is now March of UC 0095 in a random refugee camp somewhere in Asia. Kikka heads in. She is given her press pass on the spot, and the EFF soldier bringing her into the camp suggests that she doesn't interview anyone in front of security. She tells her that this camp was set up about a year and a half ago to house refugees from Tibet since Shar dropped the asteroid on the former EFF HQ. He says their new home is going to be a new space colony being built. Although the refugees are being forced to immigrate into space. Well, at least Shar's plan is kind of working, I guess. Everyone in this camp seems to be on edge. The soldier suggests that she not go down any shady alleyways. She walks through the camp and asks one random man if she has seen this woman. He looks at a picture and points to one lady serving soup. It is Kamaria Ray. Kikka approaches her and tells her that her son Amuro Ray did a lot for her and she wanted to ask a few questions. But she yells at Kikka and tells her to go back home. She has no interest in talking about her son. We flash back to the late UC 60s, early UC 70s. Tim and Amuro are heading into space for Tim's job. They want Camaria to come with them, but she says that she can't just get used to living in space. But she wants Amuro to go and explore. She cries as her family leaves her. We see the doll that Amuro finds during the original run of Gundam when he finds his mother. It is the last day before Kikka's press pass expires. She isn't sure what to do and hasn't made any progress. One old man comes up to her and harasses her. The man attempts to assault her, but Camaria comes over and finally accepts an interview. They go to her quarters. She tells them that when Amuro and Tim left for space, she partly didn't want to go because Tim and her were growing apart and he was too wrapped up in his work. During the 1-year war, she says that Amuro visited her once. We get a flashback to the moment where Zeon soldiers came into the city and Amuro showed them the barrel of a gun. She realized that war changed him. He tells her that this is war, but what we don't get from the anime is a moment where he looks at her and he says, "You don't love me." It seems Camaria not joining Amuro in space did have some effect on him. She wonders if she was able to be there to accept him, would he have ever joined the war? Kikka asked her if she ever saw him again. He wrote a letter after the 1-year war was over, but ultimately they never met again. His last words to her were, "Stay well, mother." Because she wasn't around when Tim was working, Amuro essentially grew up alone. He didn't have the love of parents, but he did try to seek it out during the 1-year war. Kikka sees a glimpse of what the real Amuro was. I assume the empathy in this moment comes from her also growing up without parents. War orphans, man. Camaria was just one of her stops while in Asia. Her next stop is New Hong Kong. She meets with Oscar Dublin. Who the hell is Oscar Dublin? Remember, the White Base crew was all but eliminated. The 2 operators remained, Oscar Dublin and Marker Clan. These 2 played a pivotal role in ensuring that White Base remained operational, and they honestly don't get any credit until now. He asks if it was Kai who told her about his current job location. He is currently working for the EFF Intelligence Agency. Which one? After the 1-year war, Oscar joined Karaba. He says that he joined the intelligence agency to support Amuro and Bright. He He says that he could have easily joined Londo Bell, so why didn't he? Oscar says it is because he thought they would need outside support. He asks Kikka what she thinks of the term new type. She believes that if humans can evolve in space, that would be a beautiful thing. Oscar says that her response is most likely due to her parents, and that was most likely due to Amuro. Back in the day, a reporter once asked him what a new type is. Amuro told the reporter that new types are people who can understand one another without misunderstanding. This isn't an answer the general public expected. It is like a religious enlightenment but without the religion. He doesn't really have a grasp on it. After a year, the stories started changing their tune. Those with outstanding results on the battlefield were considered new types. For Zeon, any pilot who utilized Psychomu weapons were considered new types. For EFF, General Revel propped up White Base as a new type squadron, and Amuro came to be known as a new type through EFF's ranks. But Revel, and possibly Commander John Cohen, were the only pro-new type generals. After their demise, EFF saw new types as a problem. They saw new types simply as the potential for the next zombie family to rise up. The White Base crew wasn't treated as nicely as the public leads on. Amuro was placed on house arrest in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Although EFF placed restrictions on Londo Bell to prevent the next Titans from prevailing, the truth seems to be that even after the Grips conflict, EFF feared Bright and Amuro. This is why he started working for the intelligence agency. He was able to help procure resources for a new mobile suit that would become New Gundam. But then he says that she needs to tread lightly. The story of Amuro being the first new type and a hero is to keep EFF off of the backs of people like Oscar who are trying to assist in their own ways. He isn't telling her to stop, but he says to be very careful as Kamaria Ray is still considered an influential figure and she will have a lot of eyes on her if she writes the so-called truth. He put the fear of God in her, but she is still determined to make this a reality. He says that perhaps heroes can be a hero even after death. He will help her in any way she needs. They talk for hours. Like we mentioned last week, so too has Oscar not really had a chance to stop and reflect on his time on White Base during the 1-year war. He thanks her for the conversation and says that the reason that he chose Hong Kong for their location is he wants to introduce her to someone. He gives her a card and tells her to go to that location tomorrow at 1 p.m. The next day she heads there. It happens to be Luo & Co. She meets with Stephanie Luo. She is honored that Kikka knows who Stephanie is. She says of course she knows someone who helped Kuraba. She thanks her for all she did for Captain Hayato. She wasn't able to make it to Hayato's funeral, so this meeting is the least she could do. She says though that she only met with Amuro a handful of times. She tells them of the time she tried to meet with her father Luo during the Grips conflict and they had to beat him up. She said that people couldn't go around asking for her father's name during that time. So her first interaction with him was that he was quite a careless person. But she saw how he jumped into action when the Titans began attacking the city. He then went out of his own way to save Midai and the terrorist Hathaway after they were kidnapped. Kikka said that her father told her about that story. Stephanie saw that he was a compassionate man who was willing to help people even during the chaos. Because of this, he accepted a meeting with the Titans. Most would realize the Titans wouldn't hold to a promise, but Amuro put faith into the people. She hated Amuro for not seeing the bigger picture back then. She doesn't know if she is mad for that moment, but one thing she knows is that a new type isn't some kind of Esper who can see everything. She says that that is all the info that she could provide, but she wants her to meet with one more person. She sends in the professor. Professor Moss Kam is an expert in electromagnetic engineering that was involved with developing EFF mobile suits during the 1-year war. Kikka asks what brought him here to Luo & Co. He says he was a member of Augusta Labs during the 1-year war. He helped bring many new mobile suits to the front lines, but he says that something dark was also happening at Augusta Labs. He is referring to cyber new types. Drugging up pilots has always been a thing, and cyber new types have been experimented on since the 1-year war. Stephanie found the professor after the Grips conflict, and she always seeks out the best people. Kikka wonders if the improvement of the Gundam was related to new types. He says yes and no. Amuro began outpacing the Gundam very fast. EFF didn't have Psychomu tech, so they doubled down on reaction time. This allowed Professor Moss to develop the magnetic coating. This drastically reduced friction and improved reaction time. This allowed Amuro to move to as close to the speed of thought one could get for 1-year war tech. He put his faith in Amuro, but says it is a shame that the improvement ended up being temporary. He received battle data up to Solomon, but Amuro's Gundam was destroyed at the Battle of Abawaku, so they never recovered the data on the magnetic coating. He says that he was working on a new Gundam that was supposed to make its way to Amuro, but it never ended up happening. This is Alex Gundam. Kikka wonders if things would be different if he obtained Alex Gundam, but the professor doesn't like playing the what-if game. That is all the information that Moss could give her. She thanks him for his time. Stephanie hands her a letter with money and plane tickets. She wants to help in her cause, so she could use the money for whatever, but she leaves her next destination a secret. We then cut to someone who knows Amuro both as a human and a warrior. It is Sailor Mass. And that will do it for this episode. Kikka is traveling in the past as she learns more about the White Base crew. She also realizes that this journey may pose a danger down the road. Next time, Kikka will meet with Sailor Mass, and she will learn more about Lala Soon and Amuro's sexy rivalry with Char. But that will do it for now, new types. Remember to take a break from being so thirsty over Kikka. She was only 4 years old last week when I covered Gundam Origin. Think about that. Peace.